Before we watched TV shows and movies on Narcos, and even before Pablo Escobar's rise to fame, there was one man who was the ultimate narco. He lived the narco life of greed, money, and power, but found a way to reclaim his life and use his astonishing experiences to empower others to live a life of hope, meaning, and redemption. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast, where Dr. Jorge Valdez shares his journey through life before and after the Medellin drug cartel, from torture and multiple prison sentences to how he refocused his life onto a path of principles learned as a narco. It's time to share that raw truth with you, right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast, with your host, Dr. Jorge Valdez.
Today on the Narco Mindset Podcast,
I've seen a lot of negative rhetoric towards immigrants and towards those who have come to this country. Through art, people can see that not everything is the way it seems, or immigrants are not the criminals we're made out to be. But there are younger kids who are suffering from these mental illnesses and not getting the help they need. The younger generation, especially in my school, has really been demonstrating how they can impact society through their art.
if we love more and if we care more, we'll make a difference in mental illness. I don't give a damn who you are that's listening today. I don't care if you're the richest man in the world or you're the poorest man in the world. We are all hurting. If I come clean with you and I tell you what I'm struggling with, I'm afraid you're going to judge me.
It's okay to be proud of what your grandparents or parents went through to get to this country.
You can be a follower or you can be a leader. Choose what you want to be. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast. My name is Dr. Jorge Valdez. I have a different co-host here than Anthony Petrucci. He's right now dealing with issues with his family during these difficult times, and he'll jump on pretty soon again. But I have my daughter again, and my daughter Isabela. Today I want to talk about something that I think that is very, very powerful, and something that perhaps during this time when we're at home and we have all this extra time and start focusing on other things. My daughter is a tremendous photographer. Well, let me give you a type bit. I hired this professional photographer for my official pictures and charged me $1,000. I was so pissed I want to go burn the studio because my daughter ended up taking the best pictures one night where we were at Cirque du Soleil. Big fans of Cirque du Soleil because it is art in itself. Cirque du Soleil is just a genius. I think Guy Lalibert for starting Cirque du Soleil, and it just brought a lot of joy to our family, but it's also given my daughter a love for art. So Isabela, tell us about how you find what you have done with art, like the latest competition that your school had, and you received a lot of commendation and medals. But at the same time, what does art mean to you? And how do you think that art has a way of impacting and changing the world? And at the same time, how artists express what's going on in life?
Well, I'm currently in my AP photography, AP studio art class at my school. And so I have to basically compile a portfolio, something I believe is important to me, and an artist statement that impacts me or impacts my life. So for me, my portfolio is based on identity and civil rights. So as a daughter of two immigrant parents who came to this country when they were relatively young, I really wanted to focus on how immigration or how immigrants have truly impacted the U.S. And so since I've been seeing ever since I moved back to the U.S. from Mexico, I've seen a lot of negative rhetoric towards immigrants and towards those who have come to this country in search of a better life. I just wanted to, through my art, to express just the falseness behind these words and behind this rhetoric that's being presented, and how immigrants are not the drug dealers or are not the criminals that they're portrayed to be. They're truly just people in search of a better life or a safer life for their families, escaping countries that are not giving them that life and that are putting their kids or their parents in danger. And so through my photography, I've really focused on how immigrants struggle not only when they get to this country, even though they are in search of a better life, but when they do get to this country, a lot of them do struggle with that identity crisis of, oh, I want to be American, but I also have this culture behind me and this past and this heritage that I don't want to forget, even though many people or many high government officials would like them to forget that past and would like them to forget their heritage. So I take a lot of pictures showing that conflict of identity, showing that crisis of, I want to be American, but I'm also Mexican, and people will always see me as Mexican, or will always see me as Colombian or Venezuelan or Argentinian. Or
Cuban.
Or Cuban. So I really just believe that through art, people can see that not everything is the way it seems, or immigrants are not the criminals we're made out to be. And so I feel art, especially now with all the young people and all the young adults who are changing the way people see things through their art, it's truly changing our society and changing the way our society thinks. So recently I actually received a National Silver Medal with the Scholastic Art Awards, which is a national competition in the US. Well, a few kids my age receive such awards, which then get displayed in Carnegie Hall. So one of my friends, she won a national gold medal, and her portfolio was on mental illness. So a lot of people my age are starting to realize that society is struggling with a lot of these, whether it be mental illness, immigration, healthcare, a lot of these ailments that people may want to ignore, but the young generation want to push forward into the rhetoric of the US and want to push it forward as an agenda that needs to be acknowledged and that needs to be heard.
You know, it's exciting because I was looking at the pictures from the competition from all her classmates. And one thing that I noticed, Isabela, is that a lot of the kids, a lot of the pictures that they decided to either express in a painting or a photograph or through another medium, all had to do with different issues that your generation, well, really the whole world's facing, but that it has really come to the attention of your generation. So tell us a little bit about some of those expressions that some of the kids, and why do you think that they did that, if you happen to know any of those kids that did some of the art that was presented?
Well, one of my friends, she's doing a portfolio on the environment, and another one is doing it on the sense of abandonment in terms of architecture. And then I have another one doing on mental illness and another one doing. So really what I've been seeing through my friends and through all the people at my school is that they're really pushing forward in, some might say, uncomfortable agenda towards people, and really pushing that this is a problem that's facing our society right now and that's facing our generation, and it cannot be ignored, and we will not ignore it. And that through their art, they're really trying to change the way people view mental illness into a way that they believe is how it should be viewed and how it should be acknowledged, especially with mental illness, because that is a problem facing our society a lot, especially our younger generation, who's been known to have a lot of problems with anxiety or depression or any other mental illness. So my friend is really trying to push forward that agenda of mental illness is having its toll on the younger generation, even though many people may believe, oh, you're young, you don't have problems like that. You don't have any real problems to have depression or to have anxiety. But there are younger kids who are suffering from these mental illnesses and not getting the help they need. So my friend is really trying to push forward how mental illness has impacted her as being someone who suffered with mental illness, and how it's changed her life and how she has overcome the obstacles of it or overcome the ways it's tried to drag her down. So I feel that the younger generation, especially in my school, has really been demonstrating how they can impact society through their art, whether it be through the environment, showing the impacts we're having on the environment, whether it be showing the impacts of abandonment in houses and how many people just abandon certain houses, and it shows that history and destruction that they leave behind, or whether it be mental illness. So I admire my fellow classmates and my peers for really pushing forward that agenda of a social conscience and of making people see that these are problems facing our society, and that whether we want to ignore them or not, one day or another, we have to acknowledge them, and then we have to help those people who are suffering for them or who are not getting the support they need.
You know, and it's very interesting that you mentioned the mental illness, because of those statistics that I read to you from January 1st to March 25th, 21,297 worldwide coronavirus deaths, but the same period, 250,000 suicides. You know, I tell people that a lot of the people that get arrested for drugs are addicts. Addicts are not criminal. Addicts are struggling with mental illness. You know, my generation really doesn't know a lot about mental illness. I'll tell you, I'll come clean about this. I was one that I always believed that if you were depressed, it's because you're lazy, get your ass out of bed, and that way you won't, and get busy, go to work, you won't be depressed. Until my wife was clinically diagnosed with depression. And I saw her struggled. I mean, literally, for a long time. Got to a point where she would just sit in the back seat of the car after we dropped the kids off school and just cry till we picked up the kids. And it barely took all her energy to get out of bed. And I remember this doctor friend of mine, he's gone to be with Christ. I loved him tremendously, Jeff Curtis. He explained to me the best. He said, the way your wife is and the way any depressed person is they live in a black box and they're looking for the shred of light to get out. And when they don't find the shred of light, they die. They commit suicide or they go to a mental institution. We ignore that in America. We ignore it. So we lock up addicts who in reality, a great majority of them are suffering from mental illness. A lot of the people in the criminal system that have done horrific crimes have suffering from mental illness as a result of abandonment, as a result of being abused, as a result of many issues. Mental illness is something that really needs to come to the forefront, and it excited me to see this young girl, literally 16, 17 years old, take it upon herself and calling the attention to us adults because we're stupid. Our older generation is stupid. We think that young people are just lazy, and in reality, they're not. They're struggling. And you look at all these kids, and I talk to a lot of kids. I remember one time this young lady from a youth group, she killed herself. She hung herself. She left a note for her parents that said, "No reason for living is my reason for dying." The parents, great people, good Christian people. They came out to me and Dr. Valdez, we never saw it coming. I didn't say nothing because it's insensitive. I hurt with them. But in reality, the question I wanted to say is, you saw it not coming or we were just not looking? We're isolated. We live in a me world where we're just care about ourselves. And because we care about ourselves, we just are not looking. Listen, no one wakes up in the morning and says, what a beautiful day. I'm just going to kill myself. Oh, wow. Look, it's a foggy day. I'll just kill myself. No, there's a lot of signs. We just don't look, and we need to look. And we need to deal with mental illness in this country. It is ignored. It is taken for granted. And a lot of people, and especially this generation, these young kids, because they have a lot. See, my generation equates wealth and comfort with mental well-being. And it's not true. A lot of these kids struggle with living up to gigantic fathers or mothers. A lot of kids struggle with fitting in. Peer pressure, bullying is horrific today. And then when they get to be bullied on the internet, where they can do nothing about it by probably some stranger. So these kids are really dealing with a lot of stressful things. But it is exciting to see a young lady that looked upon it and decided that her portfolio was going to deal with mental illness. I mean, at least it alarmed me. It should alarm all of our listeners that it is real. And people need to come to grips with the fact that if we love more and if we care more, we'll make a difference in mental illness. If we care for people. Listen, everybody's hurting out there. I don't give a damn who you are that listening today. I don't care if you're the richest man in the world or you're the poorest man in the world. We are all hurting. We're all struggling with something. The problem is nobody comes clean. That's another topic for me. Nobody comes clean because if I come clean with you and I tell you what I'm struggling with, I'm afraid you're going to judge me. And then if you're going to judge me, you're going to condemn me. Nobody wants to be judged or condemned, so we don't come clean. So today I'm going to show Bill the Jorge Valdez I want him to see. And I'm going to show Tim the Jorge Valdez I want him to see. And I do the same thing at home. And I show my kids the Jorge Valdez I want to see, but they don't get to be real with anybody. Now, I was blessed that I wrote a book and told the world I was a scumbag. I had been a scumbag. I was horrible. I cheated on my wife. I was addicted to pornography. I did all these horrible things. I brought in tons and tons of drugs. I didn't give a damn about anybody. I didn't care about the harm I was causing on anyone. I hated God. I didn't believe in God. And in reality now, I care for the poor. I care for the abused, but again, out of my excess. But the truth of the matter is that we need to care more about people. We need to just be there for others. We need to come clean. Listen, I think the greatest thing I did is tell my kids who I was. Because my kids can come to me now and know that if they mess up, if they use drugs or whatever they do, I'm going to do just like my mother did. My mother believed in tough love. Very different than what you believe is tough love. My mother believed that she didn't give me a break. Every time from the day she found out I was a drug lord, she made my life miserable. Every minute she saw me, what you're doing doesn't please God. You're destroying us. We worked so hard. We abandoned everything in Cuba, came to the country. I picked tomatoes to give you a great education for what? For you to become a drug dealer? But the minute she finished saying all that, chastising me, admonishing me, she would ask me, son, what do you want to eat today? Because she showed me that no matter what I did, I was still her son. She wasn't going to take my money. She wasn't going to let me get away. She wasn't going to praise me. But at the same time, her love for me as a mother will never change. And we need to do that with our kids. We need to be straightforward with them, but we need to love them. We can't say tough love, I'm going to kick you out of the house like this young kid that I knew, never had sex. His church thought that he was gay. They asked him if he liked boys or girls. He said he doesn't know. That's all he said. Well, they did an exorcism on him. That didn't work. Then the youth pastor told the parents to kick him out of the house. So where does this kid land? He lands in a gay community. What happened? When he realized that that's not who he is and how miserable he is, he drove his car into a pole and killed himself. So listen, people, love more. Be conscious of those around you. We're all hurting. Come clean with your kids. Come clean with your family. Come clean with your friends. Create a safe space where people can come and tell you what they're hurting and struggling with. We allow people for healing. And look at this generation. It is amazing what they're doing through art. So I just thank God my daughter got the gift of photography from my wife because I can't figure out how to light something or I'd even take a straight picture. It excites me to see her work. It excites me to see her being recognized for her work. But above all, what excites me the most is that her art is an expression of her social conscience. So I'm going to let her finish because last podcast I said goodbye and she had to have the last say so as Valdes women do. So Isabela, give us some parting words for our listeners today. Urge people that have never gotten into art, tell them very briefly, because we Cubans talk a lot. Besides your social conscience, what piqued your interest and what ended up you falling in love with photography?
Well, seeing my mom being a photographer and seeing the images she could create through her photography always got me interested in it, but it wasn't really truly until I started at my new school and started taking my own photography classes that I started kind of diving into that world and diving into what I can do with my own photography and learning about the different things I could do. And so when I knew I was going to do AP photo, I knew from day one that I wanted to do it on something involving immigration. That is really the topic that's closest to me and closest to my heart. So when I decided that it was going to be about immigration, I just had to narrow it down from there. And so I just narrowed it down to identity and civil rights as a whole, because I know immigrants who do immigrate to different countries, especially the United States, face that identity crisis and face that kind of conflict within them of, I want to be American, but these people won't accept me as an American. And yet I don't. Even like generations of kids who have been in the US for a while and who no longer speak Spanish, they believe they're American, but their name and the way they look, they'll never be accepted that way. And so they don't identify with that past or that heritage of being Mexican or being Cuban, Colombian, because they just didn't experience it. And it's been generations since their family has lived in that country. Yet when they are in America, no one accepts them for who they are, which is an American. So I really wanted to focus in and dive into how that can impact not only Americans, but other people as well, and how that impacts immigrants and how that changes kind of their mentality. And how I have seen, especially in the US, where I heard this story of in my school, this one girl by a Spanish teacher was called out for being Latin. And this girl just looked completely devastated and embarrassed. And that truly just breaks my heart, because if being Latina and showing that past and showing my Cuban and Colombian culture is such a major part of me. So seeing a girl who's ashamed of her heritage and ashamed of her past broke my heart, because I don't know what I would do without having that part of me of being Colombian or being Cuban. That's who I am, and that's made me who I am today. So I think art can really impact people of showing it's okay to show your heritage. It's okay to be proud of what your grandparents or parents went through to get to this country and to give you a better life, because they sacrificed so much for you. So I think it's only right of us to just really represent them and really show how their sacrifices meant something, and how even though they did flee their country, that country will always be a part of them and will always be a part of their past. So I really believe art will and is changing the world and is changing our society and making them see that immigrants are not the aliens or illegals in the negative rhetoric that they're being portrayed to be. They're just people looking for better lives and for looking at ways of protecting their family, which is what I believe my art is doing, and what my art is showing people, that immigrants are truly contributing to society and making America the diverse and beautiful place it is today. Because really, we're all immigrants. Wherever we come from, wherever we came from, we're all immigrants to this country. Only the Native Americans are truly the ones who started here. So we all come from different places, and we all need to accept each other as we are and for our past, because that's truly what America is. It's known as a beautiful and diverse place where all sorts of people should and can be accepted. So I think art, whether it be photography, painting, architecture, anything, it can really change society and show people that America or Europe or Asia, whatever country you're talking about, can be diverse, and we should accept everyone for who they are, who their parents were, where they came from, because that's what makes each and one of us who who we are. That's our identity. So we can't hide that identity because then we're really just hiding who we are.
All right, Isabela, tell them how people can look at your beautiful portfolio on Facebook or your webpage so that our listeners know how to look for it.
My photography Instagram is valdes.photography, which is as you can see on the podcast. And then I also have a website that is Valdes Photography as well. So you can look up my Instagram or my Facebook as well, which is Valdes Photography, or my website, and see if maybe my art impacts you in a way, or maybe will impact someone you know, and hopefully change the way they view immigrants in America and how they view just everyone in the world for the better.
So for parents, here's a tip. Sit down with your kids, find out what they're passionate about, and ask them during this time of quarantine where you have more time at home. I mean, I hope that we're not spending this time at home on the cell phone all the time, but spend time with your kids, sit down, whether it's at dinner, after dinner, and ask them, what are you passionate about? And how do you feel that you can express your passion? If you had a chance, if you were called by the President of the United States and asked, I'm going to implement something that you are so passionate about that will change the world, what would that be? Ask your kids that. Help them explore what they're going to be passionate about. Help them explore what and how they can change the world. And for those of us that are immigrants, like I tell my kids, you're not American because you were born here. You are who your parents and your ancestors were. And you are a part of you, American, because you were born here. So in essence, you're not only American because you were born here, you are Cuban, you are Colombian, even though I think the Cuban takes a little more than the Colombian, but you are Cuban, you're Colombian, born in America. So therefore, you're not better than anybody else. You're just a little richer. And if we do that, our kids will be secure, our kids will be powerful. And for those of us that are European, look back in your heritage and tell your kids about your heritage. Listen, there's amazing Italian stories and German and Polish and Jewish. Every race has gone through tremendous struggles in life and have overcome. Reach down to that. Take this time to learn about your culture, learn about your life, learn about your ancestry. If nothing else, do ancestry.com. I don't do it because it might end up telling me that I'm related to people I don't want to be related to. No. Yeah, just take this time to learn more about you and to teach your kids that, listen, it's okay to be whatever you are in life. You're not better than anyone, but you're not lesser than anyone either. So again, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode, the Narco Mindset Podcast. I hope that you have enjoyed this time with my daughter, Isabela, and see why I'm so in love with her, why she controls me and rules over me. Most fathers are going to believe that their kids, or if you don't realize it yet, trust me, if you have a daughter like mine, she's going to rule over you. Doesn't matter if I was a drug lord and I ruled the world. My 17-year-old daughter rules over me. But I'm happy because she's an amazing child, great gift that God gave me. I know that she's going to impact the world. I've told them, both of my kids since they were little, you have everything within you to make a difference in the world. You can be a follower or you can be a leader. Choose what you want to be. Well, there's no doubt in my life that Isabela is going to be a leader. Again, thank you so much. And if you enjoyed the podcast, go to my webpage, Jorge Valdez, Ph.D.com. Join our community. You will get a free PDF of my latest book, Narco Mindset Freedom Edition. Share it with your friends. Download. Help us to get this message out to the world. Love you all. God bless. And we'll see you next week on the Narco Mindset Podcast.
We've come to the conclusion of this episode of the Narco Mindset Podcast, but your path towards hope, meaning, and redemption continues. For more information and resources to help you on your path towards finding a life built on integrity, honor, and truth, head to JorgeValdezPhD.com and join our community. We appreciate you joining us for this episode and look forward to helping you find your turning point right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast.